Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. Previously, Bai was accepted as a disciple to become an immortal. In the immortal realm, Bai would discover that his chosen walk is able to double the power of anything he puts in it. However, he loses some lifespan when he does. Later, Bai heads to the bloodstream sector in search of the relic of eternity. He wears a disguise to conceal his identity and eventually enters the Bloodmaster trial as Jun's guardian. However, Jun gets trapped and asks him to win the trial instead. Bai would discover that his opponent is his long-lost friend Fei, just as he wins the trial. He doesn't just become the Bloodmaster though, as the Blood Ancestor gives him the overpowered ability to become the living second Blood Ancestor. The story continues as Bai, still disguised as Yizang, thinks about how he only wanted to come to the bloodstream sector to find the relic of eternity, but ended up becoming the Bloodmaster. He didn't expect to become the Blood Demon at all, and realizes that the mysterious old man from before knew all this would happen. Furthermore, he now thinks that this person and the power behind him is incomprehensible. Yizang then finds himself back in front of the Bloodmaster Hall, where the patriarchs explain that the survival of the sector must not lie in the hands of just one person. The bloodstream sector cannot allow the existence of a blood demon, so they instruct all the disciples in the sector to subdue the blood demon Yizang. Yizang takes a direct hit from the patriarchs and is then instantly surrounded by an overwhelming number of disciples. He thinks to himself that even if he uses the Blood Ancestor's power, he can't contend with the patriarchs at his current Foundation establishment cultivation. Yizang determines that if he wants to leave the blood sector alive, then he must make sure never to let anyone find out that he has the power of the Blood Ancestor. Seemingly not concerned at all about being captured, he remembers that he has something important to do and just leaves. Elsewhere, Wuji states that their plan was in place for so many years, yet they fell one step short of success. The Du family has lost their chance at Bloodmaster, and now it will be nearly impossible for them to surpass the Song family. Sumei apologizes to her father and asks for another chance. Wuji is furious though and reveals just how high of a price they had to pay for the first chance. He then begins to explain what happened on the day he was at the Foundation establishment Sacred Lands. He felt a presence even more formidable than the power of the 9th tide level, and we see that this presence was the little girl who was actually a spirit beast that Bai met during his visit to the Fallen Sword Abyss. She asked if he wanted to draw on the energy of the Heavenly Vein, and explained that she knows how to do it. The girl then explained how to do it, but Wuji had already missed the opportunity to draw the energy of the Heavenly Vein. In order to keep it a secret though, Wuji slaughtered all the other chosen, including his fellow sector members. Now, for the sake of the Du family and to give Sumei the right to be a contender for Bloodmaster, he had no choice but to trade the secret to the Song family. Sumei apologizes for letting her family down, but Wuji points out how useless those words are now, and demands to know exactly what happened during the trial. He wants every detail, but when Sumei tries to remember, she only ends up panicking. She can't understand what has happened to her, and begins to even question who she is. She attempts to keep someone from entering her mind and nearly faints, just as Wuji senses something frightening. He senses that an immense power sealed Sumei's consciousness, and even with his nascent soul cultivation, he could not detect it sooner. Just then, guards outside tell Yizang that no one is allowed to enter the Du family home at the moment. Yizang forces his way in though, and states that no matter what, he must see Sumei. Wuji then asks what happened between her and Yizang during the trial, but she can only remember seeing him in the heart chamber, but not what happened. Wuji instructs her to keep her memory loss a secret, and states that she is never allowed to see Yizang ever again. Outside, Yizang attempts to explain that he just wants to speak with Sumei, but the patriarch ignores him and orders his guards to escort him out. The guards do their best, but Yizang refuses to leave and explains that he just wants to see her once. He can't understand why the patriarch won't just let him see her, and wonders if it's because of the tension between the two families. Patriarch Song emerges from his home and instructs all his guards to back down. He states that he has shown enough respect already to Yizang by not killing him, and tells him to know when to back down. Furthermore, even though Yizang has become Bloodmaster, that does not mean he can come to his home and do as he pleases. It also doesn't matter what happened during the trial. As long as he does not allow it, then Yizang and his daughter have no chance of being together. Yizang fights to stand against Wuji's immense pressure, and states that he has too much prejudice against the Song family. Furthermore, this matter has nothing to do with the Middle Peak or the conflict between families. It only has to do with him and Sumei. Yizang attempts to attack him, but the patriarch points out that Yizang overestimates his own abilities and pushes him back. He questions if Yizang really thinks he won't kill him just because he is the new Bloodmaster, and makes it clear that he will when the slightest move from his hand quickly stops Yizang's next attack. Yizang is determined though, and explains that his life and Sumei's intentions are not for the Patriarch to decide. His power shows itself in the form of a beast, but Patriarch Song easily stops that as well. Yizang is still standing though, and states that he must see her today even if it's just to hear her say one word. The Patriarch shows no sympathy at all as he is about to strike Yizang down, but is stopped when Sumei runs out to explain that seeing him is her decision to make. The Patriarch leaves and Yizang is relieved to see Sumei once more. She says something to him that we do not get to hear, but it clearly shocks him. We then watch as Yizang wanders the streets as rain pours down on him, and he is at a complete loss. His memory reveals to us that Sumei told him that no matter what their history is, this is the end for them. She demanded that he leave and explained she never wants to see him again. Yizang was extremely hurt by her words but respected her decision and left. Sumei then thought to herself that she felt extreme disappointment from losing the trial, but can't understand why the pain in her heart was even harder to bear the moment she heard Yizang's voice. We then watch as Yizang drinks heavily as he wonders why Sumei doesn't just confide in him, and why she chooses to avoid him instead. He does understand though, as there is clearly something she can't disclose, and he is in the same position. Yizang continues to drink as he wonders who could understand his situation and could empathize with him. He attempts to continue drinking, but June arrives to stop him, and she questions if he is attempting to drink himself to death. She explains that she does not want to know what happened between him and Sumei, but must remind him that a war between sectors is rapidly approaching. Yizang attempts to ignore her to continue drinking, but she strikes him. She reminds him that he is now the Bloodmaster of Middle Peak, and he is in complete control of the power of a peak. If he does not stay strong and have a firm resolve, then he will let countless fellow sector members die in vain. Yizang chases after her to explain that there should be no war in the first place. Both sides will shed blood and there will be no victor. June explains though that in this situation, no one has the freedom to follow their own free will. He can hide in his home if he wants, but she wonders if he has thought about whether or not the people he cares about will survive the battle. Only by pulling himself together and becoming stronger can he defend what he cherishes the most. She explains that the Patriarch would like for him to pay his respect in 3 days, but she leaves it up to him whether or not to bear that responsibility. Yizang thinks about who the people are that he cares about as she leaves, and she can hear his scream of anger in the distance. Afterwards, we see that Yizang has put himself together and arrives to pay his respects to Patriarch Song. Patriarch Song explains that Yizang has committed a crime. The issue of Bloodmaster was between June and Sumei, so he has acquired a status that should not belong to him. Yizang however points out that he received the Blood Ancestor's approval and the Bloodmaster inheritance, so his status is completely legitimate. This only enrages the Patriarch, as it seems that becoming Bloodmaster has made Yizang think that he holds great power and influence, and an invincible position. He brings Yizang to his knees to remind them that he has the lives of many people in his hands, and wonders if he can bear the responsibility. Yizang states that as the Bloodmaster, his blood is infinite, and his will inextinguishable. While his cultivation level isn't high, he believes in his abilities, and is confident that with time, he will surpass everyone. The Patriarch continues to put pressure on him as Yizang exclaims that he also has the resolve to shoulder the heavy responsibility of protecting all that he cherishes in his heart. He reveals that if he hadn't acquired the status of Bloodmaster, then it would have been fine, but now that he has, he won't give it up. After applying more of his powerful force onto Yizang, the Patriarch finally decides to release him. He is satisfied to hear everything Yizang has just said, and June goes to check on him. While he heals Yizang, the Patriarch explains that him controlling the power of a peak will play a very important role in the coming battles. He makes sure that Yizang knows that his intentions just then were not to make things difficult for Yizang, but to make him understand that fact. The Patriarch is about to comment on Yizang's character, and Yizang correctly guesses that the Patriarch compares it to his own when he was younger. Patriarch Song then makes it clear that his intentions are to adopt Yizang as his son, and Yizang thinks for a moment about how this status might be useful in the future. Jun points out that the Patriarch is awaiting his answer, and Yizang accepts. He states that he is currently only at a foundation establishment and has no valuables, but he vows to be a sharp sword for the Middle Peak and will repay the Patriarch with his life. This pleases the patriarch further, so he gives Yi Zhang his beloved blood flame lamp for protection. It can emit blood flames that burn everything, and it's comparable to an attack at the core formation level. Patriarch Song then issues an order stating that in 3 days, the Bloodmaster Ascension ceremony will be held to announce everything to the world. 3 days pass and we arrive at the ceremony where the 3 other Bloodmasters are introduced to us. Here it is announced that Yi Zhang, Guardian of Middle Peak, will now carry on the Bloodmaster legacy by becoming the leader of Middle Peak and the master of the Bloodmaster Hall. The crowd begins to chant for the new Bloodmaster, and we see that the other Bloodmasters discuss how they can be on good terms with him. Sean explains to his Bloodmaster father that he actually already has a close bond with him. All Bai can think about though is that just as long as he can smoothly complete the Ascension ceremony, then he will only be one step away from what he really wants, the Relic of Eternity. Just then, Guardians surround Yi Zhang and explain that once he completes 3 stages, the ceremony will be over. The Guardians represent the first stage and begin their attack. Yi Zhang easily subdues them, and they state that all Guardians pledge their loyalty to him for life. He is given the Bloodmaster token, but Song then arrives requesting to be enlightened as well, as he represents the second stage. Spectators point out that the ceremony is only supposed to be an exchange of skills, but Song is very clearly preparing to fight seriously. Yi Zhang is well prepared as the two fight an intense battle. Song, never being one to hold back his anger, does well to keep Yi Zhang busy, but it eventually becomes very clear why Yi Zhang is now the Bloodmaster. Song acknowledges his defeat and announces that the elders also pledge their loyalty to Yi Zhang for life. He gives Yi Zhang a sword but warns him to not become complacent, as he has not yet actually admitted defeat, and plans to surpass him one day. Yi Zhang heads to the final stage where he is met by June, who explains that she would like to be enlightened as well. The two begin their fight, but Yi Zhang refuses to draw his sword. June does it for him and the real fight begins. Yi Zhang quickly gains the upper hand though, but goes easy on June, and all she can do is admit defeat. She is then the last to announce that the Grand Elder also pledges their loyalty to him for life. Yi Zhang puts on the Bloodmaster robe, and all the disciples of Middle Peak pledge their loyalty for life to him. The Patriarchs then give orders to the Bloodmasters of the 4 peaks as the war between 2 sectors is approaching. Starting tomorrow, the sector will confine itself to prepare for war. No one is to enter or leave. The Bloodmaster and Grand Elder of every peak will lead their disciples and deploy troops to the borders. Yi Zhang agrees to the orders, but secretly thinks that he will have to leave before the confinement tomorrow. He does plan to return at some point though, in the hopes that he can stop the war. Yi Zhang then notices June leaving just as the other Bloodmasters arrive to congratulate him. They all compliment him as the hope of the Blood Sector, but Yi Zhang tries to be humble about it all. When June is alone, she thinks about how much things have changed now that they have different statuses, and things aren't the same at all. Yi Zhang arrives soon after and expresses his concern for her health, but is surprised to see that she bows to him for his gratitude as he is now the Bloodmaster. He would like for her to behave normally, but she is determined to adhere to formalities. He wonders if it's just because his new role as Bloodmaster, but June doesn't want to reveal why she is behaving the way she is, and just wants him to know that she does have her reasons. Yi Zhang points out though he is only where he is because of her. When he was indecisive, she made him understand what was most important to him, and he will never forget that. He then gives her the Bloodmaster token as he reminds her how he promised to give her whatever she wanted. June is shocked to hear that he remembers those words from so long ago, but he explains that no matter how much things change, no matter how much he changes, he will always care about her. Yi Zhang says his goodbye as he tells her to take care and leaves. Once he does, June states that he didn't really need her help at all. Yi Zhang always clearly knew what he wanted and what he should do. Just then, preparations for the next day's confinement begin as guards are told to strictly check all entrances and exits and to stop anyone behaving suspiciously. In the forest, demons behave restlessly, and one of them ambitiously stands before the others to exclaim that the Nameless Peak has enslaved them for too long. He declares that it is now time to fight against the oppression and overthrow the Bloodstream sector. Back at the Bloodmaster Hall, Bai speaks with Dan, who has been in his pouch this entire time, and states that they have no time to waste as he must leave before dawn. Dan questions if they have enough time, but Bai explains that how long it takes depends on how accurate Dan's information on the Relic of Eternity is. Bai uses his heaven-reaching eyes of the law and breaks the ground, as that is where the secret chamber should be. However, just then, Master Diviner knocks at his door and requests to speak with the new Blood Master. As he enters, Diviner can't help but think about how rapidly Yizang increased his power, and now understands that his small body can only take a few of Yizang's punches. Yizang rushes him to speak and is surprised when Diviner falls to his knees to apologize for offending him so many times. He states that he was ignorant for so long, but now has decided not to leave until he is forgiven. Of course, Yizang wants him to leave, so he explains that it's all in the past, and he holds no grudges towards Diviner. Yizang tries to send him on his way, but Diviner's in disbelief to have been forgiven so quickly. Yizang assures him that it's okay, so Diviner gives him an ancient divine talisman as a show of loyalty. Yizang accepts the gift quickly, sending him on his way again, but Diviner reveals that there is one more thing. He screams loudly for everyone else to reveal themselves, and we see that several disciples have brought gifts for Yizang as a congratulations for his new position. They want to give their gifts one by one, but the first disciple is very slow at speaking. Yizang becomes impatient, but the disciples explain that they only became like this after the toxic rain from earlier. They desperately beg for his help to restore their health, but it's chaotic, and Yizang is running out of time. He quickly makes note of their horrible disfigurements and promises to give them all elixirs along with other things if they just leave and wait patiently. Someone else knocks at his door, and Yizang is surprised to see that it's the other Blood Masters. They have an urgent matter and explain that they made an oath to the Patriarchs to eliminate the Spirit Stream Sector's Heavenly Path Foundation Establishment cultivator, Bai. They have just received a report that Bai has not been secluded these past few years, but is suspected to have infiltrated the Bloodstream sector. They believe it's the perfect opportunity to take him down, and don't want to miss the chance. As a Bloodmaster, they offer Yizang an opportunity to share the glory. Yizang thinks about how they just want to use his strength though, and how the storyline with him eliminating himself will never happen. He agrees to sign the oath, and they admire him for his courage. The Bloodmaster of the Nameless Peak explains that he must leave immediately, since a rogue demon cultivator stirred up trouble on his peak and he must handle it. Yizang realizes that this problem must have been growing for some time, as there were no mishaps when he was refining elixirs there, and points out that he is leaving just in time. Moments later, Bai heads down to the secret chamber and uses the elixir he made to open its doors. When inside, he notices just how gigantic it is, but is confident that he will be taken to the Relic of Eternity if he just follows the door opening pill. Some time passes as he wonders why he hasn't reached the end yet, but finds that he is now under attack. He can't determine its origin, but senses that something is strange about the blood key, and uses his eyes of the law. Seeing the attacks coming allows him to dodge them, but he doesn't understand why he can't completely cut down the blood hands. The hands eventually capture him, but Bai notices that there are no hands near the door opening pill. He takes a gamble by calling the pill to him and is likely able to use it to disperse the blood hands. An image appears before him, making him realize that he is on an endless path, where the start and end are connected. The path begins to collapse though, and Bai falls down, but is surprised to see that he has woken up in the real Blood Ancestor's secret chamber. Bai makes his way deeper into the chamber to find a chest, as he determines that this is where the Relic of Eternity must be. This is what Bai came to the Bloodstream sector for, and what he has sacrificed his life for these past few years. Surprisingly though, he opens the box to find the feather that he thinks looks nice, but that is clearly not a treasure. He wonders if the Relic of Eternity is the other thing in the box, but that's just an ordinary looking shell. Bai assumes that it must be a test and tries to activate it, but it doesn't do anything. He is overwhelmed with disappointment to realize that he just wasted 5 years of his life to get a turtle shell. Dan points out that Yizang no longer has a use for him and requests that he be set free, so Bai kicks him out of his pouch. Dan points out that the mysterious elder never said what the relic would look like. Yizang determines that even though he worked so hard for the relic, he must leave empty-handed and return home. He makes his way to the transport array, but is shocked to see that it's already being sealed off. His attempt to make it before it closes is stopped, as it is explained that it's too dangerous to go through now, and it closes. A guard notices how much of a hurry he is in, making Yizang concerned, but the guard just assumes he was going to look for Bai. The guard explains that he just received orders to let Yizang through, as capturing Bai is of utmost importance. Everyone bids farewell to the well-respected Bloodmaster, and they express their confidence that he will succeed in his mission. They ask that he return safely, but Bai thinks about how he may never have the chance to return again. Yizeng takes the transport array outside, and thinks about how he originally came for the Relic of Eternity. He managed to get there, but can't understand why he feels so much agony. It soon becomes clear though, as he begins to think about all the people he met that were sincere to him, and all the honors he fought for with his blood and sweat. He then remembers when he was first told about the hand of the blood ancestor when arriving. Yizeng feels like the hand has mysteriously and inevitably connected his soul and tied his blood with the people and everything else there, but unfortunately he has no choice but to leave. Thanks for watching part 23, 6,000 likes and I'll know you want a part 24. Also, all other parts are in the link comment below.